every therapist has this aha moment that makes recovery and sobriety that much easier. It's these two dots that become connected. It's this big realization, this internal self-reflection, this emotional intelligence aspect, whatever it is. They connect these dots and it makes recovery and sobriety so much easier from that day. And in your experience, in your practice, what do you see those two dots being? And then what are one or two ways that you can recommend someone in recovery to either independently connect those dots or work with their CSAT on connecting those dots at their next couple appointments?
The thing when you asked me that question, preparing for this talk, that I thought about the most, the thing that made the biggest difference for me and with my work with other clients, wasn't really a happy aha moment, unfortunately, because anyone who's been in recovery knows that a very significant aspect of recovery is grief work.
Mm-hmm. Especially in sex addiction. Absolutely.
And so the thing that comes to mind the most for me is the realization, and honestly multiple realizations, that not only does this not work, but this will never work.
Mm-hmm.
When addicts are before they're in recovery, they start to begin to realize that it can't work, it won't work. They get to a point in their acting out where acting out doesn't even become about pursuing pleasure so much as it is about avoiding the unpleasantness of resisting a temptation.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't even make you feel better in that. And then you get to a point in your recovery work where you realize that that part of you has to go away. Mm-hmm. That addiction, the companion, which caused problems, but also sometimes solved problems, has to be put to death. Mm-hmm. And that's hard. Mm-hmm. But as long as you're still grasping on the maybe, sort of, I could think if I just kind of did maybe, no, it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. And then the thing that you have to continue to strive for as you work in your recovery long-term is the realization that no amount of pleasure or prestige will ever really bring satisfaction. You need a different kind of purpose and meaning in your life. Mm-hmm. Pleasure pursued for its own sake will always be self-serving and temporary and never bring any real satisfaction to your life. Mm-hmm. And we see this with all kinds of very highly successful men. Probably the most famous of them was probably Bill Clinton. President of the United States, super successful, super popular. What else do you want, man? Wanted a blowjob from a 22-year-old is what he wanted.
Yeah.
And you see that with Tom Brady, Tiger Woods, Jeff Bezos, like all these super successful men. Everyone looks up and goes, man, if I only, then I would be happy. Mm-hmm. No, you won't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jordan, the way that I always say it is, a really vivid example is, when you're at, whatever it is, you're at the sporting event and you see the guys in the box with all the girls, or you're at the conference in Vegas and there's like the after party and you see the guys in the cabana with all the women throwing themselves at them because they spent $15,000 on, and you find yourself wishing that you could be that guy even for just a day. You're not recovered. And I think that there's a lot of my clients, they say this, hey, man, I really like sex. I like these peak sexual experiences. And I get that. They are peak experiences. No doubt about it. No question about it. And as long as you want those, you're at high risk. You're at high risk. You're not recovered. And unfortunately, it's why we see in this addiction, what do they say, 31% recovery rate, right? I mean, it's just, it's not high. And it's because in my opinion, we're battling a lot in this addiction. The odds are not in your favor in a sense of marketing. Sex sells better than any other aspect. You drive, I promise you get in your car, you drive just across town, you will see billboards. You will see they're selling. What the biggest two industries are: makeup, health, fitness, and makeup. Right? I mean, we live in a society where sex sells, and then you need to become sexy and objectify yourself to be desired. And so, when men get into this program, and it's like, oh, this is normal. Hey, I'm not going to fight you there. It is normal. That doesn't mean it's good. and it doesn't
No.
mean it's right. I always remind everybody, this country, not just this country, governments and countries are built for money. They're built for capitalism, the exchange of money. Taxes, roads only exist to get you to your job so you can pay taxes. So this world's not designed for you to have a fulfilling life and a happy marriage. It's designed for you to make money. It's on you to find fulfillment and have a happy marriage. So don't, if you're looking around for clues as to, oh, these guys look really, really happy, in their cabana or their booth with all these women, they might look really, really happy, but they also might not have a wife that's very, very happy either.
Yep, absolutely. And that's not, I forget, I read it in C.S. Lewis, but he may have been quoting someone else at the time. I don't remember where the quote came from. But anyway, he said, happiness at home is the end of all human endeavors. And I tell you what, ain't that the truth? It's like you can go have the highlight time at the game or with a prostitute or a hookup or whatever, but it's worthless if you're not happy when you go home and sit at your dinner table. It's worthless.
Yeah, it's the difference. It's all that. It's funny. It's not new research. It's really came out in the 80s, right? What the debunking the myth of dopamine being the pleasure neurotransmitter. That has been debunked. Shoot, what are we going on almost 50 years ago? There's no pleasure that comes from it. It shifts attention and focus and motivation, right? So when we do something like that, the pleasure, if there is any, is from, I don't want to look at that, so I'm going to get dopamine from something else that's going to take my attention away from the thing that I don't want to look at. And what we talk about in our program, given that everybody's high achiever, high performer, executives, sales professionals, business professionals, a lot of what they don't want to look at is boredom, a lack of direction, and a sense of futility, meaninglessness, and purpose. And because high achievers are so fixated on achieving, being bored and lacking direction, or having even a moment of pointlessness, it's so uncomfortable, the idea that your life might not have meaning, that pornography, women, emotional affairs, physical affairs become a very, very tempting source because they're super effective. They're so effective. It's high achievers latch on to sex addiction. You can conceal it. You can hide it. And alcohol, substance addictions, difficult to conceal, especially because just like all addictions, they progress. You'll need higher and higher doses. The higher the dose gets, the harder it is to hide. Eventually, you will look like a substance addict. Sex addiction, man, you can conceal it. Unfortunately, it becomes more and more difficult as it progresses. But not only can you conceal it, but it's very effective. An emotional affair, people underestimate, they would say, oh, it's just an emotional affair. It's just text messages. It's just picture messages. People underestimate the dopamine you get all day long from this emotional affair. Oh, I wonder what picture she's going to send me. I wonder if I can say this, and then she's going to send me a picture. Just the wondering is a dopamine hit. And, they're very, 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 very effective. But it's, to everyone's point, I think there's this huge emphasis on childhood trauma and being dysregulated. And I think a lot of high achievers don't necessarily resonate with that, because it's like, hey, my childhood wasn't particular, I wasn't abused. I wasn't abused sexually or physically or verbally. My parents, really, really cared about me. They wanted me to be super, super, super successful, and they made everything, did everything they can to give me that. So the narrative is, oh, I wasn't traumatized and I'm not dysregulated. I'm really, really happy. Look at my house, look at my car, look at there. And they like that narrative. How can I speak to this? Because I was one of them, and I liked that narrative. So yeah, don't tell me I have a problem. I don't have a problem. Look at me. Look at my life. I don't have a problem. The truth is, though, I'd like your opinion on this. That's why I'm going this direction. The truth is, though, I would say high achievers are some of the most dysregulated experience some of the most dysregulating emotions. I think that's why they are high achievers. Is they're on the hunt to build a resume that would cover up these emotions. But I think one of the most harmful emotions that a high achiever experiences is feeling chronically behind. Mm-hmm. You never do, if your value is and how much you accomplish and achieve, There's never enough time in the 18 hours of the day to do it. There's always somebody who has more connections, more money, a better system. They don't have attention deficit disorder like you know. There's always a thing that they don't have. Their wife puts out, and so they're happier or whatever. Their wife lets them cheat, right? It's like there's always something that someone else has that you can't achieve, and I think the high achievers gotten used to that, and they almost beat it on their chest like it's a badge of honor. But I think what we don't think about is, man, how exhausting is it to spend 50 years of your life behind other people?
Yeah. And the more you feed that monster of pride, the worse it gets. The people, because obviously if you're worried about being behind other people, the high achiever, if you're talking about position, social position or money or cars or homes or anything like that, you are so high up the ladder of even the richest people in the world, let alone everyone in the world, right? You could look down at everyone below you and be happy, but you're not. The higher you climb that ladder, the more unhappy you are, because you think that I'm going to feed that monster and it's eventually going to be satisfied, and that's not how it works. The more you feed that monster of pride and comparison, the worse and worse it gets. And you have to, which is what I'm like, it doesn't work. It's never going to work. And I think that's why you see so many unhappy marriages and drug problems and celebrities and politicians, because the higher up they get and they chase that dream, the more depressed you end up being. The people who are lower down economically and have fewer opportunities for advancement financially and socially, they still have the dream of chasing the rainbow's end, but they don't have the means. And so they settle into well, I guess it would be nice, but I guess I got to make it the best out of what I have right here, because this is all I'm ever going to have. And that may realistically be their situation. But the high achiever sees the rainbow over the hill and goes, I can actually get it. And they go for it, and it's not there. And they're like, what the hell? And they go, oh, there's another hill. Oh, there's another hill. And eventually they just get tired and depressed because they actually have the capability to chase that dream like other people don't. And they realize this is all bullshit. It's never gonna
Well, high achievers are addicted to wanting. It's actually, I would say high achievers have a bigger addiction to wanting than they do to for those listening to this. I bet your addiction to wanting's more toxic and you are more dependent on it than your sex addiction. I can assure you. Wanting is one of the greatest addictions out there. You don't even need to act, you don't even need to get the thing. All you have to do is want it to get the dopamine. It's, every high achiever. And if you think you're not addicted to wanting, pull up your phone and look at your time spent on your stocks app, your Zillow, looking for rentals, shopping for something, your next vacation, you name it. We love to want. And this is not a sex addiction thing, or this is just a person thing. But I think wanting is probably one of the bigger addictions out there, because you get tons of dopamine when you're scrolling on, I wonder if the next house I will see will be in my price range. I wonder if the next hotel will have a super good deal, and then we'll go on this trip. It's this wanting. It's gambling, essentially. I wonder if the next one will be the one that will make me happy, that will be in my price range, that will, fill in the blank. It's they talk about high achievers. They play their whole lives for dopamine rather than joy. It's all about, they even talk about it like it's some sort of badge, right? That, always hungry, never satisfied.
Of course,
right?
They wear it like a badge of honor. They don't have anything left. That's all they have is their like, I've been chasing pride my whole life and I've achieved all these things and I feel like crap, but look what I've done. And it's like, they're not even happy with what they've done, but that's all they have. And so they're going to tell themselves that it's worth something.
It's withdrawal. It's withdrawal. That is, and everyone hits it. I was really, really lucky. I hit it early in life. A lot of people will, they hit it late, at midlife crisis. That's withdrawal symptoms from when wanting stops working. Wanting just doesn't, you've been on enough vacations. This is your third exotic car. I mean, this is your third marriage, your fourth marriage. This is your 150th prostitute. this is that withdrawal of, I don't know what to want. Wanting that, I've had that experience. And so wanting it's not as mystical as it once was before you had it, and this is why you see a lot of super high achievers, celebrities, people at the top have this sort of moment is it's like, well, I've wanted everything. And I know that wanting it's actually more exciting than getting it. And that's which I think brings us full circle back to your initial statement, which was the truth of the matter is, and I loved when you and I were on the phone talking about this, because I couldn't agree more. You will never find a substitute, well, unless like a hot shot of heroin in the arm, but you will never find a substitute for a novel peak sexual experience. That is a very high. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I have cracked the code for a higher high than that. I'm not going to, that would be a lie. That would be a lie. What I will tell you though, is when that experience is over, you are typically lower than you were before. So I would say the result of that experience is a low. I wouldn't even say neutral. I would say it's a low. And then depending on how dorsal and or unconscious you are, you might go into a numb state where you decide, you've developed strategies to not feel, and a lot of guys listening to this, you're going to say, oh, well, I don't feel guilty. I don't feel shame anymore. My wife says I don't have empathy. When you start going to those dorsal places, you don't feel anything. There's nothing you feel. So you can crawl in bed next to your wife after acting out, sleep like a baby. And that's the beauty of, when you look at the polyvagal theory, yes, co-regulation can regulate you, but if you look at the graph, going dorsal regulate, both people end at the same spot. One person has dehumanized themselves. The other person has connected and lives in integrity and is committed to reality. But my whole reason of going back to this topic is I think you're clearly very, very passionate, specialized in this area. It's definitely how you choose to treat addiction, which I love, because to me, I hear a lot of men say, I feel like I'm in the washing machine. And you see this in the books. Carnes talks about this in his books. It's in Singer's talks about it in his book. Barta talks about it in his book. It's in every book. There is this 8 month to 1.5 years where you're getting recovery fatigue, and you feel like you're in a washing machine. It's like, how many more times can I talk about my childhood, my regulation strategy, my need to connect, and my intimacy disorder? It's like, I'm tired of talking about how hard it is to be intimate. I so resonate with that, because it does get boring. I think it gets boring for high achievers actually quite a bit sooner than it gets boring for the general population. You won't find a higher high than sex. And for high achievers, they chase highs. And so I think that's feels like disappointing news. But here's what I will say is, joy is a much more blunted experience. Serotonin, endocannabinoids, endorphins. It's not as a high of a high, but I'll tell you what, you can wake up with it. You can tap into it at any time you want. If you're really, really good at it and you make it an emphasis, you start playing for joy rather than playing for wanting and dopamine. If high achievers, if you start playing for joy and crafting a life that brings you fulfillment, meaning, esteem, connection, love, belonging, these core human needs, as a high achiever, I would say 8 months in, if you're pouring everything into that you did into your own professional development, your career, it's very, very achievable to build a life that yields those things. And yes, they're not high highs, but you don't need highs when your whole day is full of the neurotransmitters that I just described. You don't need high. You don't need a high. For those that have children, yes, playing with a 6-year-old is, it is what it is. But that feeling that you get when you do it of, I'm just doing the right thing. I'm doing the right thing. Yes, I'm behind on my work. Yes, I'm tired. Yes, my knees hurt, kneeling down and on the floor right now. And I'm right where I need to be. And this is exactly what he or she needs. This is what this kid needs. That feeling, you can feel that all day long at work. You can feel that all day long on your commute. You can feel that stuck in traffic. I am in traffic, and there's nothing wrong with being in traffic because there's traffic right now, and I need to get from here to here. But it's that sensation. It's those blunted feelings that I think to a high achiever looks so boring. But man, imagine not needing to regulate yourself, and imagine being able to look yourself in the mirror and knowing that you're doing exactly what you were supposed to be doing. I call it a sense of peace and wholeness, and I think a lot of high achievers don't know it because they've gotten addicted to being unwhole. They don't want to be whole. They wear shirts that say always hustle, 1% better every day, always hungry, never satisfied. It's like a badge of honor. To me, as now in the addiction space, it's like, what that shirt means? Chronically dysregulated.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's the truth.
So when we circle back to that, because this is a big gosh, I mean, this is kind of stupid for us to even talk about here because purpose and meaning is such a, it's an individual journey. It's a mouthful. If somebody could find it, everybody would find it. There's a reason that, 1 in 1,000 people live this really purpose-filled existence. It's not done before. Speak to that though. You have an addict that comes into your office, a high achiever, an executive, somebody who has chosen this lone wolf, somebody who their success is the best thing that's ever happened to them. And now you're trying to get them to shift towards a life full of meaning and purpose. How do you do that? How do you do that in 22 visits?
It's not something that I honestly want to tell them on the first visit, that they have to give up everything they thought they loved about their life because it's not going to work. They would not come back. But as you kind of go through their process and help them understand what's really going on and why things aren't working and they're not going to work, at a certain point in your recovery, you have to turn away from focusing so much on what you're running away from and focus more on what you're running towards. That's just another way to talk about that washing machine feeling that people have. If they're always just like looking back, I don't want to do that, I don't want to do that, or my boundaries, am I going to my groups, am I checking all these boxes? It just, it gets boring. What next? Do I have to do this for the rest of my life, or I'm going to lose my marriage? That sucks. So you have to start looking about what you're running towards, and what you're running towards could be different for all kinds of people. But if I had to boil it down to one thing, I would say that you need to play a critical role in a worthy cause. And that worthy cause cannot be primarily about you. You can't be like, well, my businesses are worthy causes. I mean, maybe they are. I don't know what your business is. But you're not going to be able to resist that temptation of, I provide housing, or, whatever your business is. The temptation is always going to be right there in your peripheral vision of, look how great I am. I'm doing such a great job. I'm going to do more of a great job. And you're going to be right back down in that self-serving, pride-chasing hole. So you're not really mature until someone else matters more than you. And so whatever that worthy cause is, it should be something that's not self-centered. And the important part about the critical role, the high achievers have no problem with that. There needs to be something that will go wrong if you're not engaged. Because then it makes you feel like I actually have some stock in this. And so whatever that looks like for you, if that's, some kind of social cause, if that's helping individuals with, pick your population, there's all kinds of people who need help. If that's a faith or a spirituality that you can lean into, those things are really, really important long term.
Yeah, you what I heard you say was the way at some point in time you have to break the delusion that playing the game that has been established will bring you joy. Again, the way that I approach this is it's just like, we've got to understand the world has been fabricated for an exchange of currency. And so playing it's not designed for humans. It's designed for exchange of currency. And so if you're crushing it at that game. Because again, and you know how they keep us in that game? You know how they keep us in it? They sell us status. It's literally go to work, get money, take the currency that you just got from doing all of this work, and then enhance your status. And that's what it's the game. It's why people keep playing. Is it's like, okay, if I crush it at this game and I stay in long enough and I do everything right, I will have more currency to exchange, and that I can use that currency to exchange it for a higher status, bigger, more lavish vacations, nicer stuff. And then of course, how do they keep us engaged for longer? Because that wears off in your 40s, and it starts to the bubble is popping, and how do they do that? They dangle the carrot of, hey, one day you get to quit. One day you get to stop and you don't have to participate anymore, right? Retirement, which is hilarious because retirement's like the biggest curse to a high achiever. It's it's a high achiever's biggest fear. But the irony is they're saving all this money so they can retire, but then they all know that retirement would be it would be the ultimate curse for a high achiever, and it is. A lot of high achievers, they last 6 months into retirement before they're off into another adventure to humans are pretty simple, right? They need to regulate. They need to feel regulated. It's a must. There's no way you're going to get out of that. You're either going to lean into people and go regulate, or you're going to dissociate and live in your little delusion in this dorsal state. You cannot stay angry and frustrated for long. It's an exhausting way to live. You will pick one of the two, and then you need your needs met. And I think, to me, when you explaining purpose and meaning to someone, that's the route that I always go is, hey, start playing the game, the game of life. Start playing the game to feel regulated, ideally on the co-regulation side of things, and not living in your own little delusion of, I'm so awesome, I don't really care, I don't feel it, I don't want to feel anything, I can figure this all out myself, I can't trust anyone. That world's kind of nice because nothing can really bother you. The thing I always say though about the dorsal state is it's not selective. You can't just not feel bad things. You also don't feel anything human. And some of the best feelings in the world, connection, fulfillment, purpose and meaning, right? Purpose and meaning comes from making an impact on other people's lives. And so when you're living in this dorsal state, the only game that you're interested in is your own. And humans are not designed to be fulfilled getting your own needs met. That's why people who just focus on their own, promoting their own narrative, are extremely unfulfilled. That's not. So I guess what I'm getting at is, you can play the game that everyone else is playing, but why would you play that game when 99% of people are unhappy?
Yeah. We just live. And this is not a new thing.
No.
I mean, our culture is especially capitalistic for sure. And we have all the things that people are happy to make money off of us. Mm-hmm. But every great moral teacher in history, Socrates, Buddha, Confucius, Jesus, they're all, the world is not the way. We do have these human needs, but we also have this weird, like, shame, pride thing that we're all in competition with each other. And that's the one we all really want to follow. Mm-hmm. And that's the one the world as a whole wants to follow. And that doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. It works for what it does, but it's unhuman. And that again, that's, why is like connection so imperative, right? It's like connection. But I think the addiction world doesn't do a good enough job of selling it. And so I think people are like, they try to connect, but like, and they do, they check the boxes like, oh, okay, I'll go to dinner after the 12-step meeting. Come on, man. Real, true connection is an investment in them and an investment in you.
Yeah.
So yeah, you go into dinner, and I mean, it is an investment. It is, brother. If you're struggling, if you're going to relapse, come sleep next to I'll put a sleeping bag next to my bed. Like, that connection is like, I know how bad this is, and I don't want you to feel this. Your wife's amazing. I don't want her to have to go through. I mean, that takes an investment in someone else, and then for it to be reciprocated. And it's just, it's the reason connection works is it pulls you out of the game of life and it pulls you back into being a human. The reason sex addiction is possible is because you have dehumanized yourself. And when we dehumanize ourselves, we dehumanize others. And so which is a very dangerous place, because now instead of recognizing that the woman on the other side of that screen is a person, a daughter, a mother, she is now an object. And you don't feel bad because you're an object. And a lot of high achievers are like, no, I'm not dehuman. Yeah, you are. You are a human doing. You are a person that needs to wake up and play the game of life and crush it. That is not human. That is, you have now dehumanized yourself and turned yourself into something that does things to accomplish things. That's not what humans do. Every cycle. Here's the last thing I'll say on this. If anyone wants to prove what I'm saying and disprove your delusion, grab any psychology book in history, your choice. You just grab one, or let's go religious book. Grab a Bible, pick your religion. Find a book in there that says go accomplish, go crush it, and stack that 401k up, buy all the investment properties, get as high, scale your business as high. Find one book that says that's going to work. A single book. And then send me an email, because when you look at the science of it all, there's no data to support this game that everyone's playing. And so, that to me, that's the biggest proof right there. When I had to break this delusion, it was like, wait a second, I can't find one scientific piece of evidence that suggests I'm ever going to be happy with doing this.
Yeah. Yep. It's because it doesn't exist.
Because it doesn't exist.
And your reference of the religious literature is fitting in the Old Testament, the Torah for the Jews. There's a book called Ecclesiastes, which is probably 3,000 years old, where pretty much the whole point of the book is the author, presumably King Solomon, who had like 700 wives and was super powerful and rich. The whole book is meaningless. Everything is meaningless, right? This guy could do literally the most powerful guy in his region of the world at the time, and he's just like, my life sucks. Nothing works. Like, that was the whole book.
Well, and the irony of the when I read the Bible now, especially going through just recovery, and just so everyone knows, I have no particular religious affiliation at all. I'm very open to truth of all kinds, and so that's what I'm interested in is things that are true. And so, as I've revisited a lot of the teachings within all of the religious books, everyone reads and it's like, oh, that king's an asshole. It's like, you do understand this book is about you. This book is about Jordan. This book is about Roland. This book is about us. All the books are, you will be tempted to do. Now, yes, do we live on a throne and quite do it? Not exactly, but are we that far? Are we that far off? Are we still leaving? How many meaningful things do we do each day? Are we playing the game for our own agenda? How much of our time and attention is going to winning the game in our head that we want to win? That's what those books, every single one of those stories is about that, right? They say, right, gain the world, lose the self, right? I mean, that's the.
What would it profit a man to gain the whole world and
yes, it's said in a ton of different ways in every book. It's basically. And it's funny. I find people, they read those books and they're like, man, it's so sad for that one guy. And it's like, that's one way to read it. Right. So, I want to transition into, living in integrity. It's obviously a hot topic in, addiction. I think as an addict though, it's more intimidating, or vague, or a pipe dream, if you will, depending on how you look at it. It's not well defined. And so I think when we speak about living integrity, it's like, well, I'll just get maintenance polygraphs every 6 months and now I'm living in integrity. I'd love to talk about that. The way we define it in our program is it's a commitment to reality. Not your reality. It's a commitment. It's a commitment to, here's how I say it. Honesty is always telling the truth. Integrity is a commitment to seeking the truth. Another way of saying that is it's a commitment to the odds that you're probably wrong. Because a lot of people are wrong and the truth is subjective. But unfortunately, no one will ever know what the one truth is. There probably is one, but unfortunately, we will not be able to know what that one is because it's a feeling that you get in your body. And in my experience, the truth for each person is a bit different. I have been designed to do certain things on this earth. And so I feel really drawn towards that sort of impact and influence. That's my truth. If you ask my wife, for her to get on an interview like this and share her thoughts is just not something she's interested in doing. It doesn't excite her. It drains her, right? So in a world where we don't know for sure what is true, how the hell are we supposed to live in integrity?
That's a good question. And that is a very long conversation. When I'm working with people, a significant portion of time, depending on where the person is, can be devoted to this. If a person comes in and says, I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Jew, I know what that means. And I can go, all right, like, here is your worldview, here is your set of beliefs, and we're going to work within this context of, like, here's the truth, and here's how you live in integrity with what you believe to be true. More and more people don't even know what that is, right? They're like, I don't know, is justice a thing? Like, do I believe that it like matters? And like that confusion and that sense of meaninglessness, just the existential meaninglessness goes, why shouldn't I just do whatever the hell I want when I feel like it? And so trying to help a person who doesn't have that kind of background build an idea of what their ideals or their virtues are is a very important first step to being able to live in integrity, because they don't even know what they're working with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, it's been proven. Your belief in the higher power is not enough to keep you sober. It's a fact. The religious I saw a study. There are more sex addicts who are Christians. There's a higher percentage of Christian sex addicts than atheist sex addicts. So your belief in God is not enough to keep you sober. So that the question then is, what is? They see I know my answer to this. I'm just trying to have a engaging conversation. But as a high achievers, they're individualists, most of them, which means don't tell me what to do, don't tell me what to think. That can be problematic when it comes to a process addiction, because process addictions, sex, for those listening, sex addiction is what's called a process addiction. So the dopamine comes from you engaging in a mental process. So, oh, wow, she's looking at me. She must want me. Her husband's right over there, but she's still looking at me. So I must be better than her husband. And now I'm getting dopamine from her looking at me. When the truth is, she's probably looking at the scoreboard that's like 4 inches. but in my delusion, man, she's doing that. I must be better than her husband. Her husband's really an attractive dude. They're sitting in really nice seats. They're dressed well. They're rich. She still wants to be with me over her husband. I'm getting dopamine from this idea. Let's say I am right. Let's say she makes a pass at me somehow, and we have, she gives me her number. Okay, so let's say she was checking me out. Nonetheless, the narrative about what she's doing there and what that means. Oh, wow, I must be a better person because here I am with my wife, and she still wants to be with me over her husband, and she knows I'm married. Okay, right? So the narrative is, wow, I must be valuable. So that's a quick synopsis of a process addiction. You're getting off on a brain process. So back to the topic. So, as a high achiever and an individual, someone who does not want to be told what to do, someone who wants to choose their own beliefs, somebody who likes choosing their own beliefs, somebody who arguably has been bored to choose their own beliefs and called to choose their own beliefs, to change the world by finding something fundamentally wrong with humanity and creating a solution to keep people from suffering more, right? So, okay, you're called to solve a problem. Cleaning water, have wealthy men suffer less, whatever your calling is. You have grown skeptical of
Mm-hmm.
anything that a man says, because high achievers often look at another man as, hey, I don't care if you got a little white square here and you went to Bible school. I ain't listening to you because you're a guy.
Yeah.
And you're no different than me. And honestly, I've watched you operate. I'm not that impressed. So, so my point is, how does a individualist find truth?
Well, if you were sitting in my office and you said, I'm called to fix something that's wrong with the world, I would say something like, called by what? And how do you determine what's wrong?
Yeah, I
well,
like
you have if you're going to use that kind of language, which smacks of the religious emotions, but you're not a religious person, like you need to have a little more integrity in your thought process of, I want to have these feelings, but I don't actually want to submit myself to any kind of higher moral reality.
Yeah. The follow-up question. So do you have a particular faith? The high achiever goes, oh, no, not particularly. No. Right. Yeah. But then they just told you that I feel an internal hardwiring in my body to solve this issue, and it's the most important thing in my life. I bring this up because recovery, I am not a religious person, but I will say this: I believe, and a lot of it's from recovery, because there's no doubt that I've been called to do something, no doubt. And when I find that calling, we call it self-actualization, discovering self, expressing self. When I do that sense of peace and wholeness and legacy, I don't need a sex addiction. I don't need high highs. Frankly, a lot of people don't know this. My wife and I, when I sold my business, we've been traveling the world full time. It was a dream of mine. I'd made all the money. I bought all the stuff. So we just said, oh, well, I was still bored and unhappy. So I was like, hey, let's travel the world full time. My wife, we've lived in Santorini. We've lived in Tuscany. We've lived in Zermatt, Switzerland. We've lived in Machu Picchu. We've lived all over the world. We don't have a home to this day. This is one of our rentals that we own. But my point of sharing that story is everyone's like, wow, my life must be amazing. When we decided we were done with it, Santorini is the most boring. After a month, you never want to see Santorini ever again. And we're getting text messages, direct messages. Oh, you guys are so blessed. Look at, we had this infinity pool the only reason we're still homeless is because we're waiting for our home to finish up in October. But I am not sure how much traveling I'm going to do ever again. I've played the game enough, and I know that discovering myself, my unique abilities, and discovering how to use them to help people who need my point of view, there's nothing better. It is the greatest feeling ever. And so anyway, it's, that's a lot of people have this come to Jesus moment. They call it, that was mine was, hey, I don't care if it's Jesus, Buddha. I don't know who it is, but somebody's up to something, and they want me to go help people with this particular problem. And when I do it, it feels good.
Yeah. When you tell me that story, the first thing I think is, it sounds like a life that's really difficult to maintain any sense of community in. That's the first thing that I think.
Why do you think we that's spoken like a CSAT. Why do you think my wife and I, I had intentions of doing it for 17 years. I really did. 20 years, 40 years. Because it was like, oh, I'm going to see, it was 160 countries. I was like, man, it's going to take a lifetime to, and I didn't want to just see them. I wanted to experience them, eat the food, meet the people. Yeah. I liked that. Again, process.
Great for what it is, right? But if you think that's the thing, it's not going to work.
And now my wife and I are like, shoot, I was like, man, vacation. I don't know, maybe I'll have a desire again, but it's like, my wife's going back into her master's. It's like, as a betrayed partner, she wants to, she's never really felt a calling until I betrayed her in this way. And now she feels really called to help women through this. Cause this is she really wants to stay married to me. She believes I am her person. And this almost made her lose her person, because of things that happened to me in my life to make me this way. And a lot of marriages don't go the distance with this because you look like an asshole. But I'll tell you this, every single addict has zero intentions of leaving their partner. That is not something that they want to do. Sometimes they get in too deep in their addiction and they start thinking that would be a better idea. But usually it's fueled by getting rid of the shame and getting rid of the guilt and chasing novelty.
Exactly. It's novelty and cowardice a lot of the time. Right. Like, oh, well, this is going to be hard, and I don't like hard things.
Exactly.
I'm going to live into my strengths.
Yes.
I'm obviously not good at this, so I'm going to live into my strengths over here.
Correct.
Let me answer real quick while we still have some time.
Please.
You asked me, how does a person who lives individually find like integrity or what's true? I didn't really answer that question. A good place to start, if you're looking for like a set of values that you can live into, a good place to start is Stoicism.
Yeah.
Because there's a set of values that have been, all cultures throughout history have the same basic morality, but it's really well codified in Stoicism. And there's practices and there's plenty of good reading can be done in that stuff. And whether you stay there or not, if you're just kind of flailing around and don't know where to go, that's a good place to start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ryan Holiday writes that awesome book, The Daily Stoic. It's a daily reading. It's super short. It's less than a page. And it just, it exposes you to the concept. For those of you who are listening and don't know, Stoicism, it's not, everyone always says, oh, Stoics don't feel, don't care. No, that's not what it is. That's not what Stoicism is. Stoicism is, to me, I think Jordan, you really presented it well. To me, it's integrity. It's a commitment to reality. That's what Stoics are. They live in a way that persistently seeks truth and points out fallacies and truths that you could believe. It's not that you don't care. It's that you are very, very observant and cautious before you believe something, because the truth is, by the time something has exited somebody's mouth, it has passed through their brain, through everything they learned when they were 0 to 12, through everything that they learned from 12 to 25. And then they use their vocal cords to choose words to say something. And so it has passed through a lot of process to exit their mouth. And the odds of it being corrupted are high. I'm not going to say it's false, but the odds of it getting corrupted to 98% true, that's very, very likely. I would say it's usually probably closer to 60 or 70, considering no one knows what the truth. But I like that. So the last thing I want you to speak to is your definition of the difference between recovery and sobriety.
Sobriety is just not acting out. Recovery is when you don't have to white knuckle anymore, that you're getting to find some joy and some peace in your life. And for a lot of people, they don't really even know what those words mean. Like, they might be able to define them, but they have no experiential experience of them. When you can see a girl jogging down the street in nothing but hot pants and a sports bra and be like, she's really pretty, good for her, and move on with your day. And then you're like, oh crap, I didn't objectify her. Like, you think about it later that day and you're like, I was just having, peace in myself. I wasn't always on the hunt. And how unpleasant that is to constantly be on the hunt. And you can say, oh, well, I have, captured the most things. Who cares? You're not happy. So when you can look back on a day and go, I don't know if I really accomplished anything, but it was a good day. I got to spend some time with people that I cared about. I got to spend some time in, whatever spiritual, religious discipline you want to engage in. And I'm okay with that. Not feeling like you're after hunting, not feeling like you're white knuckling. That's recovery.
Yeah, it's people think legacy is something that happens after you die. Legacy happens now. When you're dead, then it's talked about and it's measured because there's a finite end to it. But it happens today. How you are remembered is what you did today. And so to me, it's that recovery is almost that. It's that recognizing that I am a life force, that everything that I do has an impact. And if you don't want your daughter to be treated at, looked at, have a guy pretend to like her and date her for a year or 2 or 3 just to use her for her body, and has no intentions of being with her after that because he has other hopes and dreams for himself. But he doesn't tell that to her because he knows that she won't sleep with him if he does. If you don't want that to happen to her, you can't be someone who's doing that.
Yeah.
And that includes sex workers. That includes pornography. Pornography is filmed prostitution. I know people are like, oh, what's the big deal with pornography? Every video has 50,000 plus views. I know it does.
So what? In this country, it's normal to be overweight and have a ton of credit card debt. Those aren't things you want to do.
My analogy is heroin addicts love heroin. Do we just say, oh yeah, knock yourself out? It's every day you have a choice of how you're going to live your life, and it matters. And I think in a dorsal state where you're just one more, back to Jordan, back to your sensation of purpose and meaning. If you're just one more, and that's it, that's all you are, then yeah, it doesn't matter then, because you're just one more. But when you actually rehumanize yourself and you realize that the accumulation of legacies makes a difference. Like, yes, you are one more. You are. And every day that you're doing something that makes the world a worse place, you're leaving a legacy that is corrupting this place and putting other people in uncomfortable positions. And I think if you let that in, that's recovery. When you start acknowledging that you are a life force and that you matter, you do. Those decisions matter, because if everyone stopped looking at porn, the industry would disappear and these poor women and mothers would not have to do what they're doing. They could live in dignity and not have to have 18 cameras filming them have sex with someone they just met 5 minutes ago.
Yep.
This is coming from somebody who's watched my fair share of porn. Again, I'm not just this like Christian guy telling you that don't watch porn. I've watched it, a lot of it, and I regret it.
Yeah. There's a fantastic book called The Porn Myth, unless you're unfamiliar. It's not a religious book, but it talks about all the things why porn is not just bad for you, but bad for society.
Yeah, bad for your head too. I think too, if we, again, when you are not human, then there's no consequences psychologically. But if you are a human with a purpose, filling your brain, I've deleted all the songs off my phone that I like. I like some of those songs, but they talk about objectification. They talk about sleeping with a woman as some sort of trophy. And I need to delete that stuff. I like the beat of that song. I like the way it sounds. It's fun to work out to. But you can't underestimate the influence of other people telling you that sleeping with beautiful women is a trophy, is some sort of success, because that woman has an agenda and a life of her own. And your agenda of sleeping with her to add some sort of gold star to your, she might not feel that way. And if she does feel that way, she probably has the same sickness that you do.
Yep.
So it's rehumanizing. Recovery is about rehumanizing yourself, because when you become human again, it is baffling how honest and connected and right you don't have to try to your point, the difference between sobriety and recovery. You don't have to try to do the right thing. Humans do the right thing. But again, recovery is getting back to that point. Stop being an AI where you're just like looking around at what should I do, what's impressive, what's the next thing, and look inside. And I know that's a difficult thing for an addict to hear, because we don't have a lot of experience doing that. Again, all I'll say back to that is, I know, but why are you so concerned with what's normal, considering that the vast majority of people are completely unfulfilled and scroll on social media to try to kill 2 to 3 hours of their day? If our ancestors saw what we were doing with all of the free time that they got us, man, they would be upset. Hey, Jordan, where are you licensed? I love this conversation. I'm sure a bunch of my everybody listening to this is going to really enjoy it too. Where are you licensed? And if somebody wants to, use your services, how do they do that? And where do they need to live?
Pardon me. I'm licensed currently in Ohio and Kentucky.
Cool.
So if you happen to live there, I'd be happy to see you. If you happen to be in Cincinnati, Ohio, I can see you or somewhere close thereby, I can see you in person. If you live anywhere in Ohio and Kentucky, I can see you virtually. Cool. I can do quick phone calls. I couldn't accept you as a client if you live anywhere else, but if you want to shoot me an email or send me a phone call with some quick questions or requests for resources or anything, I'd be happy to field any of those questions or requests that people have.
Yeah, this really was. It was a fun. I knew when we met that this was going to be a good conversation, and it definitely lived up to the hype. So, Jordan, I so appreciate this. Anybody listening, if you're looking for a recovery group, Successful Addict is our group. We do groups of 10. We have 2 in-person 4-day retreats each year. We have Zoom calls with your group every single week, and those calls are so awesome. They're highly structured. It's not just like a share. We're down to business. They're super efficient. And then we have a daily accountability system that we use to exchange video message and voice message, so you can have that true connection. Sobriety, the key to getting out of this thing is to connect. I do not actually ask for any sort of contract or commitment. You come in, you recover with us for as long as you need to. So for any of you who are looking for a group, go to the website successfuladdict.com. Jordan, dude, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
I think we're going to do this again. I can't imagine that this is going to be our last time.